Okay, here we have Bradley Genryo Jones. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, Ohayou gozaimasu. Yeah, yeah. This is usually my coffee and contemplation time to use
Yeah.
um, to use a Hopper quote there. Um, so I wanted to just start these little conversations with really interesting people and maybe about healing or about Zen or Tai Chi or Qigong. And I just wanted to, I don't know, see if we could possibly bring an angle to to a bigger audience that people don't necessarily hear. So, Ohayou gozaimasu. That's fun. Okay, so Genryo, Brad, you came out of Missouri and you were
Right.
like a skateboarding kind of listening to punk music kind of guy.
Yeah.
How did that bring you? What brought you to Zen from that? What was the impetus that actually made that happen?
Well, I mean, I was always like I was kind of a awkward, gawky kid. I got into skateboarding and punk rock, and me and my friends were, we formed a band. We were into this music. We formed a band. We created a venue. Would rent out the VFW hall and get out of town bands to come, and it was like this great, and it was a great community. There was a lot of kids who felt disconnected from their family, from their kids, from their friends at school, the other kids at school. So it was like this group. It was sort of a sangha feeling, and there was this great feeling of like being able to change the world kind of through this really, really loud music.
Yeah.
So I've always thought of like that time as like the beginning, the roots. I always thought it would be fun to like trace out, punk songs like line by line with Zen texts. I don't know. It would. There's connections, I think, and it's like was the beginning of it. And yeah, then I went away to college. I went into college for creative writing, poetry, and I got into the beats. I was really
Where
into
was that? Where was that at? Where'd you go?
University of Missouri.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, um, in Columbia, Missouri,
Yeah.
and so I was doing my best to, emulate the beats,
Yeah. Me too.
and yeah, and reading all this stuff, and I'd come across, I would trace back from what the beats wrote and like look up like Han Shan or original stuff, Ryokan, and
Yeah.
got into that. And I found a few Zen books and looked up my local Zen sitting group, and that's how I got connected, really.
Yeah. 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 With Jundo.
Right, Jundo Tim Williams was
Yeah.
running the sitting group there.
Cool. Cool. And I think I love the connection of the. I think people don't necessarily understand this, but the intensity of the punk scene is very. People think Zen might be sort of this kind of. Sometimes people think cold, kind of unemotional, but actually the intensity of that punk scene, it in a way it felt really really similar to Zen in a certain way, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, the more recently, I've kind of come to think of it because I still like feel this really strong connection with it, and I go back and listen to the old music and get energized. And what I'm starting to understand is I think it's like Fudo Myo is like this great fierce intensity to start the path. I mean, like I just remember there's this one like indelible moment that I've always remembered. I was 17 or 18 driving around Springfield, Missouri, and I had a 78 Thunderbird I got from my parents, this enormous old car, and I was at this intersection. It was a hot summer day, heat rising off the pavement,
Yeah.
and I looked over and there was this like, middle-aged kind of dumpy dour lady in the car next to me, totally ordinary,
Yeah.
but I just got like seized, and like I had to physically stop myself from like leaning out the window and banging on her window. And I just wanted to scream out, it doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be like this. And I just like had to stop myself and like pull over. I'm like, you're cracking up, man. You got to just calm down. But that's like where I was. I mean, it was just like this fierce feeling like,
Yes.
this world is so stupid. It doesn't have to be like this. We have to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's always been what's carried it through, I think. And that's what I found. That's what I loved about Zen when I got there. It was like, it made sense there.
Yes. Yes. I know what you mean. I think, you know, I went to school in Missoula in Montana, and we also kind of thought I thought I was Jack Kerouac and Neil Cassidy. And my friend really was kind of wild, but I wasn't as wild. But I remember people kind of talking about Buddhism in this sort of middle way, and which kind of felt like, I don't really know what that meant, you know, in a way, but I knew extremes. And in a way I felt like I needed to be more extreme. I needed to go fully in with all of my being into something. And so I think when I started to touch upon some of these old masters and saw they were pretty wild people, they were really pushing it. That made sense to me more than an idea of you know, some kind of middle way. I didn't quite understand that, but I knew intensity, and I knew I needed to put my intensity into something.
Yeah, well, I remember the Roshi saying, like, you know, people may think that what we're doing here is extreme and it's not the middle way, but how do you know what the middle way is if you don't know what either end is? You know,
Right.
if you're
Right.
maybe your middle is way over here, you know,
Right.
you don't know.
Right. Love it. So Jundo, he was kind of like a wild guy.
Yeah, he was great, and like I said, he was. There's just something about him. There was just this aliveness about him that was sort of lacking in like even the 20-year-old people that were around me in my classes and stuff. He was just a kind of a live wire.
Yeah.
And you know, he was a painter. He was an artist. He's kind of a. He took me out painting. We would leave like 6 a.m, 5 a.m, and drive out to the bluffs above the Missouri River and climb out and paint the morning light and stuff.
Yeah.
And he had been to Sogenji several times. He'd been to India and all over, and had several times gone to Sogenji. And he was the one that encouraged me to go. He's like, you know, you could just go to this place and just sit and see how deep you can go.
Yeah. And he did some epic doku sessions.
Yeah.
Doku session is a solo retreat, which I want to talk about later. But Jundo, he was a pretty hardcore practitioner.
Yeah, I think he always felt like he didn't get to stay for long periods, and while he was there, he didn't want to. He just wanted to go deep. He wanted to go on a doku session.
Yeah, totally. So he helped you kind of make the leap to Japan.
Yeah. I mean, I finished up my undergrad. The relationship I had in college disintegrated.
Right.
That fell apart, and it was like I could either go to grad school or do this. And I was actually, working temp jobs, thinking about it, like trying to slowly save up money. And my car got hit. Somebody slid into my car, and the insurance totaled it. Declared it totaled, and the value was like $900, which was exactly how much the plane ticket was. So that's how I got my plane ticket and went to Japan. And it's funny, when I was I had to report it. I had to go into the police office and like file a report. And the clerk at the police office, I had been living in Washington, in Oregon. I had been living in Oregon, so I had an Oregon license plate or driver's license.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, Oregon, have you ever been to Whidbey Island?" And I was like, "No," but I mean, I'm thinking I already knew that Tahoma was on Whidbey Island. I don't know, it was just kind of a weird coincidence.
Interesting. Wow. So, I think that something that's a little unique is that you went to Sogenji without really knowing the Roshi.
Right.
So you weren't like, there's this magical being there. I'm going to go try to just be around him. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I was just in love with the city and sat all I could. We had Jundo's group had used this interfaith chapel at Stevens College.
Yeah.
And like I got permission to have it open at 6 a.m. So I was like doing morning sits every day, and most of the time it was just me, but just sitting all the time as much as I could. And
Wow.
yeah, it was on Jundo's recommendation that I could just
Yeah.
go there.
And so you go to Japan, you take the Shinkansen, and you arrive, and you're there, and there are all these foreigners, and
Yeah.
it's kind of a wild, strange place.
Yeah, and I still remember the first time I ever saw the Roshi. It was like some kind of a formal lineup. And I wasn't Taco Hatsu, but it was this thing where like there was a bunch of people lined up outside, and he came out from the Genkan. And I think what it was Bodhi had arrived back.
Oh, really?
And the Roshi was like tearing him apart. I mean, I don't know what the situation was exactly, but I know something was going on. Like he had arrived back for something, and the Roshi was pissed. And he was just like, so I'm standing there like staring at the ground, listening to this like just like growling, barking, and then I like glance over out of the corner of my eye, and he's just like beaming like a baby, like glowing like a baby. And I'm just like thinking, oh my God, what have I got myself into?
Yeah, right. The most scary person that you'll ever meet, and
Right.
the most shining, like beautiful, kind of glow.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I got all that like in the first 10 seconds.
And I think so Genji has these sort of cultural waves, so like I think at times it's a little wilder, and then I think it calms down, and everyone's kind of just studying or whatever real hard, and then there's a wild crew. It was pretty wild when you got there. Was it pretty calm there in terms of people?
Um, I don't know. That's a hard question.
Yeah.
I mean, it was I didn't really have any reference point,
Right.
so
Right.
seemed pretty wild to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, it was just I just remember I just loved it. And the first, because I arrived in November 1st of 97. I actually lost Halloween that year because I went over the international date line on Halloween. Didn't get a Halloween in 97.
Yeah.
So that November Osashin was my first one. And I remember, because I was sitting on the Gaitan, and I remember coming in during Osashin and just feeling this palpable energy in the Zendo.
Yes.
And thinking, I recognized it immediately, and what it was exactly like being on stage at a punk show with the whole crowd and the movement and the energy, this intensity, but it was completely quiet and completely still. This is amazing.
I love it. Yeah. I just want to kind of repeat what you're saying there. The intensity of the Zendo was the same feeling of being on stage at a punk show. That's just
Right.
awesome, and I think people maybe can't even understand that, but I think part of why I'm talking to you today is to kind of reveal that's real. That's really interesting,
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure anybody who's been to a concert's felt that electricity, and being the focal point, being on stage makes it even more intense. I mean, it was that kind of feeling. It was just like in the air, just like crackling with this intensity.
Yeah. Wow. And so you stayed there for a while. First, you just sort of figuring out how to exist there, probably. But you stayed, and you got kind of hooked, and you loved the life there somehow. And what did you love about it?
It's just real. I mean, a big part of it that I think people don't really fathom is just being exposed to the elements.
Yeah.
I mean, you're just like, I remember that first Osashin, it was cold. I mean, not as cold as it gets, but it got pretty cold. And I remember like, didn't know how to use chopsticks yet. I wasn't good at chopsticks.
Yeah.
And I remember going into breakfast and my hands were like numb with cold.
Yeah.
And I already was bad at chopsticks and I couldn't work the damn chopsticks. I remember just like being ready to burst into tears because I was so hungry. You know, we hadn't eaten since like 4:30 the night before. And I'm just like, I can't work the chopsticks. It's just like, but it was great. I mean, it was just so rich. I mean, and you never like, I don't know, like also that first winter, I remember just like later in the winter, just like there was a day there was a kinhin and it was getting to be just on the edge of spring, like just almost to spring. And I was just like, you know, like just shivering and shuffling.
Yeah.
And I realized that, you know, I was thinking like, I'm going to die. And like, that had been like my mantra for like weeks and months through the winter. Like, this is just, you know, humans aren't supposed to be this cold. I'm going to get hypothermia. I'm going to have permanent medical damage. You know, I'm not supposed to be this cold. I'm going to die. And then like somehow this like sense of spring crept in. And that day I was walking Keenan, I was just like, oh, I'm not going to die. It's going to warm up. Spring's going to come. I mean, you never, just like feeling that in your bones is such an experience. I mean, you don't, to be so cold for so long. And then, you know, it's not, it's just something in your bones. It's deep in the ground, like that spring is coming and you can experience that. It's wild.
Wow. Love it. I remember for me, the fear of winter would come. I came actually on Halloween also, which is
no kidding.
interesting. So yeah, I know what you mean. I think actually I arrived on Halloween, so I didn't miss it, but I was right there, you know. But yeah, I remember the fear of winter and yeah, just, oh my gosh, and my shoulders start to creep up in the fall, you know, and there we go, you know, I'm in the elements, and you'd rake the dirt one day, and then that was it. You know what I mean? It would be frozen in that.
Yeah.
That
and then you have to keep going out and raking it anyway. It's like frozen solid. You're just like.
And so, kind of real quick, you really connected with Kanze-san as his inji. You were in. And I think that's really interesting. So I think you connected with the Roshi, but you really loved Kanze-san. I think that's really interesting if you could talk about that.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Kanze-san was the retired former abbot of the temple. He was 93 when I met him. And he was just amazing. I mean, he was just like a tank. I mean, he just was like rumbling along. And it's a really funny story how I came to be the inji. I don't know. Have you ever heard that?
No.
About what actually was going on?
No.
Because I don't know. Can we name names? Like Jusan was inji.
Yeah.
And he's this like really gregarious, affable Australian guy. Really funny.
Yeah.
Spoke really good Japanese.
Yeah.
And one morning at breakfast, we were all like sitting at the breakfast table, and somebody, you know, runs up to the Roshi and whispers in his ear. And he looks around, he has to get up and comes down. He's walking down the table and he's like, Buraduri. I was Buraduri. Then he's like, right. And I'm like, oh shit, what? You know, he's like, so I follow him down and he goes in there and it's just like this wild scene in Kanze-san's house. Kanze-san is like screaming and ranting and Jusan's running around. And so I'm standing there with with my head towel. You know, you've always got we had these little dish towels that you wear on your head to protect from the sun. So, you know, I go in the house, I take off my head towel, I'm standing there holding it for a long time, just watching. And I don't speak any Japanese, I don't know what's going on. So I kind of fold up my head towel so I'm not just holding it like loose to keep myself busy. I'm folding it up, I'm sitting there holding it folded, still a long time. So there's like a little stool by the door, so I set the folded head towel down on the stool, so I'm not just like holding it like an idiot.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, Kanze-san's walking across, and he like points at my head towel, and he's like, "Ariwa Zokin," and I'm like, "Oh crap!" You know, what did I do? And Zokin, he's like, "There's a rag. there's a rag there. And so I like picked it up, and to try to demonstrate that it wasn't a rag, that it was my head towel, I like put it on top of my head, all folded up. And I'm like, watashi no fukin desu, or, you know, watashi no atamazokin desu. Like, this is my head rag. And he just looked at me and he busted out laughing. He's just like, because, well, what had been going on was that he had walked in on Jusan when Jusan was cleaning the bathroom, and he was cleaning the bathroom with toilet paper. He had he was ripping off toilet paper and wiping down the toilet with it instead of using a rag.
Right.
That's what happened, and it just like exploded. I mean, there was other stuff going on too, I'm sure, but that was what it was.
Wow.
So then, yeah, Kanze-san was like, I like this idiot, get him in here.
Wow, that is awesome. Kanze-san was a tea master, and I was, you know, just this live wire running around. And one time I went into his little house there, and for some reason he wanted to give me a bowl of tea. I don't know why. He liked me at that moment for some reason. And it was the first time I ever saw a tea master to whisk a bowl of tea. And it was so mind-blowing for me.
Yeah.
See someone whisk a bowl of tea, like, and what caught me was his complete lack of self-consciousness. It was so simple what he was doing, but it kind of was just so shocking. I think I've never done anything that kind of free, you know, and that kind of simple, you know. So it really shook me to see that really simple thing, and oh, this is a tea master. This is what that's really like. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, he was amazing. That, I mean, yeah, I mean, partly, I guess, being so old, but yeah, he just everything he did was like that.
Yeah.
I remember one time he was really sick, and we had to take him to the hospital, and like he couldn't get up out of his futon.
Yeah.
And like called in, a bunch of guys came in. We're gonna like pick up the futon and carry him out to the car.
Yeah.
And like everybody's around, they picked him up, and we're about to carry him out the door. He's like, wait, stop. And he made us like hoist him up, and he whisked himself a bowl of tea, and has a bowl of tea, and he's like, all right, now we can go. So this is amazing.
Wow. Okay, so you stayed there a while. You got ordained. Okay, why did that happen? How did that leap happen for you that you got ordained?
Wow, you know, it was for me, it was like just another way to like take it up a notch.
Yeah.
Like, what else can I do? How can I do more?
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking back, maybe that wasn't the right motivation. I don't know. There was a lot of me like, I'm doing this. I'm going to do something awesome. I'm going to do as much as I can.
Yeah.
Level up. So maybe there was some misunderstanding about it, but at the same time, that's where I was, and that's what I had.
Yes.
It was 1999. Yeah. And that was, yeah, I just saw it as like, what else can I give? What else can I do?
Yep. 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 No, it is ambiguous also how that all happens and why, I think.
Yeah.
For I think for a lot of us, well, like making that leap is not really completely clear, I think.
Yeah.
For a lot of people. I think I remember some people describing you. I think that did you sit in like full lotus from like the first day?
No, pretty early though.
Yeah, I think you were pretty flexible.
I got long, thin legs. I think that makes it easy.
Yeah.
And also I was just like, I mean, being thrown into that much sitting.
Yeah.
Because I remember being on the gaitan and just suffering. I mean, just like, I remember like I had this vivid mental picture that my knees were just going to explode and blood was going to splatter across the shoji screens like some, you know, samurai movie. Yeah, I was sure that was going to happen. It really hurt.
Yes. Yes.
And I could set full lotus. I had done it before. Back in the States for a little bit at a time. And so
Yes.
I would switch it around. I would do a little full lotus and a little half lotus, and it didn't hurt any worse,
Yes.
which
Okay.
is not saying much because it hurt really bad.
Right.
But I was like, well, if it's going to hurt this bad anyway, I might as well go all the way. And so
Yes.
that's kind of what I did from the beginning, and just was kept with it from that.
Right. 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 Um, I want to talk just for a minute about your doku session, if we could, and you were on a doku session for how long? A few months?
It was like 8 weeks, I think.
8 weeks. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
And you were up there and you were working on the moo, and I remember hearing rumors that people had seen you at Circle K, which I think is so fantastic. Because if you're in doku session, you're up there and you like, maybe you go and you like grab some, you steal some like spinach from the garden and eat. You know what I mean? You're like,
Yeah.
but you're at Circle K. I love that so much. Did that really happen?
I mean, you did a doku session in there too, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, so it's like, because everybody's together, the song is always together, so
Yeah.
and you know the schedule.
Yes.
So you can come down, and while everybody's like in one place doing one thing, you can go to
Right.
your box and get your tea bowl, or
Right.
you
Right.
can go around and do stuff.
Right.
And also, yeah, I would just take long walks just
Yes.
to keep from losing my mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I would walk down the back of the mountain. There was this big, like, kind of quasi-industrial area with some big box stores, and I would just kind of walk along the sidewalk among the vending machines and the weird buildings, just like kind of feeling like a ghost. It was just this weird
Yes. Yes.
sense of just walking and walking. Nobody knows where you are or cares.
Yeah,
You're just
right.
like a ghost. So yeah, it's possible I might have turned up at Circle K at some point.
And I don't know that we need to talk about particulars of like the moo and all that, but I remember also hearing that like after you passed moo, you went and you bought like a lawn chair from the the store, which I think is like totally fantastic also. Like your
Yeah.
response.
Yeah, it was actually the last day of the doku session, because it was on one of these walks, and I remembered, like, I saw this lawn chair that was like, I don't know, it was up high on a shelf, and it was kind of like the holy grail, this little halo behind it. It was exactly like the one my grandparents had at the at Table Rock Lake, and they were on the Ozarks, with the nice webbing that's woven, and it was like 1,000 yen.
That's funny.
And yeah, when I don't know how much to say about the end of that doku session, because it was more, I always thought of it more as a breakdown, kind of.
I don't agree. I don't agree with that. That's not what I see. So that's my take.
But yeah, I was just so like kind of crushed and confused and done at the end of it.
Right.
I didn't even realize that it was the end. I was really like, I remember Chisan telling me, no, you don't have to go back up. You're done. I was like, what? I just didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
And so like the free day after, it ended on an O session. The free day after that O session, I had to go back up to the Hermitage and get my stuff. And then I walked down the back of the mountain and went and got that lawn chair. I was just so tired of sitting on the floor.
Yeah, right.
I was just like, I'm getting that lawn chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think that also brings up a really interesting point that sometimes when we go through some changes that we don't even totally realize what has happened to us. So I think that's partly what I'm saying, is that something happened that you've taken whatever years to process and whatever with all of that. I think that's a big that's a good point to say, is that some of this stuff that moves through us and purifies us and all that, it isn't always apparent what it's really about at the time.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, for years I thought of it as like a failure, like a breakdown, like it just fell apart.
Right.
And but yeah, what you're saying is true. I can't deny that something's changed that never went back.
Yes. Right.
After that.
Right.
And I think a lot of it, I think that sort of tied into why I ended up leaving. And when
Yeah.
I did, it was because I had this really gung ho, like, I was like the guy that was going all the way. I was like the this gung ho practitioner.
Yes.
I had a lot of identity wrapped up around that.
Yes.
And then something happened, and that just kind of broke apart. And
Yes.
then it didn't make sense anymore.
Yes. Right. Right.
Um, so I was really just like float in this weird floating place.
Yes. Yes.
Um, yeah, and it was after that time, that was when I was got into my relationship with Nev, who would later become my wife.
Yes.
And that, that the work we were doing together in that relationship became so real. Like,
Yeah.
that became the real work.
Yes.
And I still had like such a love and respect. I just felt for like the Zendo life and that training life. I thought, well, it just seemed different. I wanted to leave. I wanted us to go do that elsewhere, and not because that wasn't what
Yeah.
I thought of as the Zendo life. So
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
so that led us
And
to.
learn to explore all of that out in the world, and see what, to press against that, and see what comes back at you. And no, completely. Okay. And so you left training, and you came back, and you guys moved around quite a bit. Nev was she was doing graduate school, and we're in Chicago. Is that right?
Yeah, we came back to we landed back in Portland.
Portland,
She hadn't started her undergrad, so she started some undergrad in Portland, PSU. Then we went down to Eugene, lived in Eugene for a few years.
Yeah.
That's where I did a lot of practice at the Soto Temple in Eugene, Butsu Genji, with Ajo McMullen.
Right.
Which was really a great time.
Yes. Right. Right.
Learned a lot there.
Yes. Right.
Um,
How would you say that felt different than being with the Roshi?
Well, like, ask anybody that knows Ajo, and the first thing they'll say is he's a great guy. I mean, and he is. He's just like this warm, gregarious presence. I mean, he's this giving, kind guy.
Yes.
Really big, nice, established sangha. Really warm family kind of feeling in that sangha.
Yeah.
It was different because it was Soto Shiro. The Dokusan was like a conversational kind of thing.
Yeah.
There was a lot of Dharma study. That was one thing I realized after I got back. I knew, like, it was really embarrassing, actually. I knew absolutely nothing about Buddhism. I would come in there. So that's where I learned all of my, like, Buddhism 101, like the 6 paramitas and the Eightfold Path and the 6 realms, and how to set up an altar, and, all that stuff I learned there. That's been, really sustaining for my practice since then.
That's really interesting. Yeah, no, I think so Genji, you're like this, you're really doing this physical embodied kind of practice. And people will come to the temple and they say, what does that statue mean? We have no idea what that statue means. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And you might learn it, like, if you get that position at Kotai where you have to take care of that, then I think you might learn that. But I did, like, I did four position, 4 terms as Enji. I didn't do a lot of the other positions. So
right. Interesting. Right. Yeah. Okay. So
and then actually Nev got a scholarship back in
right.
Nagoya. We did a year back in Japan in 2006.
Right.
So that was wild.
That was wild. That was right. Wow. Nev's kind of a super brain, by the way. So that, yeah.
And then after that, we came back. That's when we went to Chicago.
Okay.
When she did grad school.
Yeah.
And then after grad school, we were back on the West Coast. She did her postdoc at Stanford.
Yeah.
Our son was born in Chicago.
Yeah.
And from the time he was born to now, we moved like 5 times, I think, for different jobs and schools. And
right.
All over the place.
And so, okay, so what's how does this all relate to your life now? What is it? Are you still is it still with you? Is it still kind of in the forefront of what and who you are, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And but how and why? Yeah, that's the $1 million question. And it's been now like 20 years. I mean, I left in 2001.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and for a lot of years, like trying to put it behind me, like, oh, that was a waste. That was, what was that all about? I'm going to do something else. I'm going to forget about it.
Right.
And then slowly coming to terms with it, like taking responsibility for it.
Yeah.
Trying to figure it out, and it took a really long time to come. But I don't know. I always like am too critical. I'm
Yeah.
too self-critical.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I think becoming a father is what really brought it home.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
I think that things have really gotten real.
Yes.
Um, because I just felt like, I mean, you're just like called on. You just you have to have a capacity that you're what you're called on is beyond your capacity,
Yes. Right.
like to love or to have this patience or this energy. All of it is way beyond
Yes.
personal capacity. I mean, and it's impossible, but the
Yes.
stakes are so high. I mean, you have this like perfect shining
Yes.
being that you have to like go beyond yourself to really take care of.
Right. Right.
And yeah, it's just, I remember thinking like when my son was born, I mean, I remember thinking it was just like Sanzen, except you never get to leave. You don't get wrung out. You're just like in there with him for like hours and days and weeks, and you're screaming and crying,
Oh my
and
God.
you can't leave.
Yes, that's right. 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 I remember when Rose was born. It's like, oh, they left us. Here we are. At 1 a.m. Everybody left us. Just Teresa and myself and Rose. It's like you say, we're not wrung out. We don't get to go do our thing now.
Yeah, yeah,
There's Rose. We're still in Sanzas.
yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, totally, totally, totally.
Yeah, and just what can I say about? I think what it's come back to is, I mean, I've asked myself that question a lot of times. Like, what was that all about? Like, what was the takeaway? I mean, nostalgia is great and I love it, but what was the same then, and what's from that here now?
Yeah.
And what I keep coming back to is there is these like, I don't know, indelible moments, for lack of a better word, like um, the sunlight coming through leaves and the shadows and the light interplaying across the tatami, just like
Yeah.
those moments.
Yeah.
And they're not exclusive to that experience. They're like all the time here,
Yeah.
always here.
Yeah.
I mean, and it sounds like nothing. You're like, so what?
Right. Right.
But it is not, it is everything. It's like,
Right.
that's, and not just that it is everything. It's like the keyhole.
Yeah.
To everything. It's like the entry point.
Yes.
Is the invitation.
Love it.
And keeping it in your body, like finding that, like not letting that be an idea, but like
Yes.
That I've doing aikido, doing running, all that stuff has come like within the last 5 years for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I was never an athletic person.
Yeah.
And like I said, the whole experience of Sogenji was so visceral, but so much of it was environmental. It was the elements,
Yeah.
and the situation and the schedule and the grueliness of it. And then how do you recreate that? How do you get in that embodied situation in the cushy luxury of, life back home?
Yeah. 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 Right. Right. Yeah. And I think, at Sogenji, you have all this energy, the qi or qi in Chinese. It's always there. It's always full. You're always just kind of bubbling over with it. And I think, part of the trick is, for us is, out in the world to, have touched upon that life energy, and then to, through our own creativity, see how that is always present and always engaged. We can always engage with that continually, and without, I think there's a cumulative idea of practice where if I just do more, then we'll all get in there more. And instead that we can kind of see, at all moments, I can touch this and engage with it and have it be alive, and without that particular circumstance, which I think people tend to grasp onto. Oh, practice happens over there,
Yeah, and I remember, I'm thinking of a time like, there's always hard times, right? And with family life, there's difficult situations. And I remember sometimes like just hitting this wall, this impossible place where your brain is like telling you these two equally unacceptable alternatives. And I remember being in that place and just having to like leave and go run.
Yeah.
Like in Pleasant Hill, California, they had a great like bike path system. So I would just go run for an hour.
Yeah.
And just get that all out. And somehow from my body, I would just come to understand that those two unacceptable alternatives that my brain was presenting me with are not necessarily all there is. There's my body, there's the whole universe,
Yes.
And through that, just to be able to go back and allow for the possibility of something else.
Yeah. Right. Wow. Right. Cool. Let's see. How about anything else you'd like to share with anyone who's out there watching? Yeah. What's the last thing you want to say today?
Oh man. Just that, like that, like I said, like the indelible moment thing that I was talking about.
Yes.
That it's available, that it's here, and that it's not. I hear a lot of times, I hear people say stuff like, ordinary mind is the way, like you don't have to do anything.
Right.
And I want to emphasize that, like, even like I did like 42 oseshins in 3.5 years.
Yeah.
And on this really intense situation, like steeping in it. And then it still took 20 years running away from it. It's not like it doesn't take any work,
Yeah.
It is always there.
Yeah.
But it's not a done deal.
Yeah.
You can't just say that.
Yes. Yes.
And even then it's just the entryway. It's just the pinprick.
Yes.
But that's so exciting to me.
Yeah.
Because what's the alternative?
Yeah.
That there, there's no hope, but there is hope. There is this path. There is this way, and it's real.
Yes. Yes. Right.
So, yeah, if I can share that with anybody, that's all I want to do.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's beautiful. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. This is my first rodeo. What's that?
Thank you. I was going to say a little while ago, like I said, all the work from the time my son was born for the last 5 years. And so, and all of your writing, all the stuff from your blog has been invaluable to me, to getting by, to working this all out. And I want to thank you for that. For real, man.
Well, it's thank you for that. It's my pleasure. I think, I do all that writing to process my own internal you know, clarity with all of it. So yeah, I'm glad it hits home on, you know, for certain people. That's really wonderful for me. It keeps me going with it. um, yeah, thank you so much. Okay, well, I'm going to sign off here. Wonderful to talk with you. Have a great day.
You
Thanks for
too.
listening. What's that?
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. All right. Bye bye. Thank you. Okay.
Take care.
Okay. Okay.